The wreckage of the transport vessel stretched across the canyon floor, like the broken bones of some ancient beast. Arya Dalen pressed her back against a jagged piece of hull plating, her tactical scanner dead in her hands. 3 days since the crash. 3 days since her unit had scattered across this hostile moon, and she was alone. Her rations pouch felt lighter than it should. She'd already consumed 2 of her 5 emergency bars, leaving her with barely enough to make it to the extraction point, if rescue ever came. The twin suns of the Kepler system beat down mercilessly, turning her combat armor into a mobile oven. A sound froze her mid-step. Not the wind. Not the settling of debris. Something organic. Something alive. Arya's hand moved to her sidearm, fingers wrapping around the grip with practiced ease. She'd been briefed on the fauna of Kepler 442b before deployment. Apex predators the size of shuttlecraft, pack hunters with reactive camouflage, and territorial scavengers that could smell fear from kilometers away. None of the briefings had mentioned what to do if you encountered them alone, injured and running low on supplies. The whimpering came again, higher pitched this time. Younger. Against every survival instinct screaming in her head, Arya moved toward the sound. She rounded a twisted support beam and stopped dead. 3 small creatures huddled in a depression beneath an overhang. They couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Their bodies covered in downy silver fur that would eventually harden into the armored scales of their species. Their oversized eyes, 4 of them arranged in a distinctive diamond pattern, tracked her movement with a mixture of fear and desperate hunger. 4 cubs. She recognized them from the xenobiology database, which meant their parent was nearby. Arya should have run. Should have put as much distance between herself and these cubs as possible before Vor returned. An adult Vor stood 3 meters tall, possessed claws that could shred plasteel, and had a documented history of aggressive territorial behavior. Encountering one in the wild was considered a death sentence, but the cubs were starving. She could see it in the way their ribs pressed against their thin skin, in the weakness of their movements, in the glazed look of their multiple eyes. Whatever had happened to separate them from adequate food sources, they wouldn't survive another day without help. Arya's hand hovered over her rations pouch. The logical part of her brain, the part trained in survival protocols, told her to leave, to preserve her own resources, to prioritize her mission and her life. The human part of her brain thought about her niece back on Earth, about the way children's eyes looked when they were hungry, about the fundamental wrongness of watching something innocent starve when you had the power to help. "This is stupid," she muttered to herself, even as she pulled out one of her remaining ration bars. "This is incredibly, monumentally stupid." She broke the bar into smaller pieces and tossed one toward the nearest cub. The creature flinched, then caught the scent. Within seconds, all 3 cubs were on the piece, devouring it with pitiful desperation. Arya's tactical training warred with her compassion. She threw another piece, then another. The cubs ate with the single-minded focus of the truly starving, their fear of her forgotten in the face of sustenance. She was down to her last ration bar when she felt the presence behind her. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. The cubs suddenly went still, their multiple eyes focusing on something over Arya's shoulder. She didn't need to turn around to know what was there. Vor had returned. Arya's hand moved slowly toward her sidearm, knowing it would be futile. A standard-issue plasma pistol might irritate an adult Vor, but it wouldn't stop one. She was dead. She'd sacrificed her survival resources, and now she would pay the price. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, unsure if she was apologizing to the creature behind her or to the family she'd never see again. They were hungry. I couldn't just... The expected attack never came. Slowly, Arya turned her head. Vor stood 5 meters away, massive and terrible, silver scales catching the light of the twin suns. 4 eyes regarded her with an intelligence that made her breath catch. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was a parent, calculating threat assessment with the precision of any sentient being. The adult Vor's gaze moved from Arya to the cubs, who were finishing the last pieces of ration bar. Understanding flickered across those alien features, or perhaps Arya was projecting human emotions onto something fundamentally other. Vor took a step forward. Arya didn't move, didn't reach for her weapon. If this was how it ended, she wouldn't go down fighting a creature that was only protecting its young. The massive predator moved past her, a mountain of muscle and scales, and gathered the cubs close. They chirped and nuzzled against their parents' flanks, and for a moment, the scene was almost domestic. Almost peaceful. Then Vor did something that would haunt Arya's memory for years to come. The creature reached into a pouch-like structure along its torso, something the briefings had never mentioned, and withdrew what appeared to be a partially preserved carcass. Not large enough for Vor's own needs, but still substantial. The predator tore off a portion and, with deliberate slowness, pushed it across the ground toward Arya, an offering. A trade, a recognition of debt. Arya's hands shook as she accepted the food, knowing what it meant. In that moment, across the vast gulf of evolution and biology, two parents had understood each other. Two creatures who put the welfare of the young above their own survival. Vor gathered the cubs and melted into the shadows of the wreckage, leaving Arya alone with the weight of what had just transpired. She looked down at the offering in her hands, then up at the empty space where the predator family had been. Her last ration bar was gone, but somehow she felt richer for it. The extraction shuttle arrived 6 hours later. When they asked her how she'd survived, Arya told them about finding preserved supplies in the wreckage. She never mentioned the cubs or the understanding in Vor's multiple eyes, or the way compassion could bridge even the widest evolutionary divide. Some stories, she decided, were too important to be reduced to mission reports. Some stories needed to be carried in the heart. A reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or its technology. It was the stubborn, illogical, beautiful impulse to feed the hungry, even when those hungry mouths belonged to something that could kill you. Even when doing so defied every rule of survival, especially then.